Sometimes the help you need can come from the least expected source. Here's a story of how a wolf pack rescued a pregnant woman. I'm sure you're wondering, how did they save rather than harm her? What happened to her will shock you. I must admit, this is not a story you see or hear every day, and I would have had my doubts if there weren't eyewitnesses to back the story. While most women have a medical team of well-trained experts to help deliver their child, Mary Cranach had midwives who simply knew what to do. They surely knew what the assignment was and got the job done. So, who helped her deliver her child? We will get to that in a bit. Mary Cranach is originally from Minnesota, but she lives in Talkeetna, Alaska. She found love in her early 20s and got married. She and her husband were a happy couple who wanted to have lots of children. They wanted a large family. Fortunately for these lovebirds, they didn't have to wait long before Mary conceived. On the day the Alaskan resident found out she was going to be a mother, she was over the moon. And when she told her man, he was beyond excited as well. In 9 months, they would have their little one running around the house. Exciting, isn't it? Mary had an uneventful pregnancy, the best kind. She had no issues other than morning sickness, constipation, food cravings, and sometimes the occasional mood changes. Nothing out of the ordinary, as everything progressed smoothly. After 12 weeks of gestation, it was time for her ultrasound. The couple was looking forward to knowing whether they would have a boy or a girl. The Minnesotan drove to the medical center in the city. She was directed to the sonographer for her scan. Her test results revealed she would have a boy. She called her husband immediately, and he was ecstatic, knowing that in a few months he would have a son. The 25-year-old was 8 months pregnant during winter, and the couple had agreed that during this period she would only stay at home. This is because they live in Alaska, the coldest state in the United States. Although their home is located in Talkeetna, one of the less cold parts of the state, the cold season still lasts for 4 months, from November till March. However, on this day in January 2014, Mary was forced to leave their home, and she had to drive to the city to get what she needed. On her way back home, there was a snowstorm. Many of the roads had become blocked, and the blizzard made it very difficult to see the road. It had snowed all night, and it didn't seem like it was stopping soon. The roads were covered in snow that was 40 inches in height. However, she was a few miles away from her home when her car stopped and wouldn't move. The tires were steeped in snow, and despite her best efforts, she couldn't get the car to go. Mary hoped that perhaps emergency services were working to clear the snow from the road and would find her soon. But they didn't, as their focus was on the highway rather than the less busy road in the forest. What made the situation even more delicate was that she couldn't keep her vehicle running for much longer, as she was about to run out of gas. The snowstorm only got heavier, and the heavily pregnant woman was feeling cold. She was also worried that it was getting dark, and she was stuck in the middle of nowhere. What if she was attacked by any of the wild animals who lived in the forest? Isn't this too cold for her baby? Or what if it becomes too dark and she can't find her way? These were the questions that played on her mind. It would be horrifying for her to spend the night here in the forest, so she came down from the SUV and started walking. Rather than head home, she walked back to the city, as the distance was shorter compared to her house. The young woman hoped that someone else would use the road so that she could hitch a ride. But not many people were driving at this time, as most of the highways had been closed. Mary had been walking for like a half mile when she started feeling uneasy. She considered that maybe the pain she was feeling were labor pains, but she was 8 months pregnant. She wasn't due for delivery until a few weeks later. However, the pains intensified and became unbearable. Not long after, she was unable to walk, but fortunately she found a tree, and there was less snow around it. She dragged herself to the tree and sat next to it. Mary was really scared, as she was in an impossible situation and didn't know what to do. She was desperate and tried calling her hubby, but she couldn't get through. So she contacted the only person she believed she could reach out to. The young woman prayed to God to help her. She said, "I had walked half a mile when I suddenly started having these excruciating abdominal pains. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. How could I be going into labor when I was only 8 months pregnant? But I was going into labor right there in the middle of a forest, 2 miles away from the nearest house, and with no one to help me. She was sitting at the foot of the tree when the cold and pain made her unconscious. Remember when we discussed who her midwives were? Well, they were about to just arrive. Mary was out cold when a pack of wolves arrived. The pregnant lady would have been a good meal for the wild animals, but guess what? They didn't harm her. Instead, they did the unexpected. When asked about the wolves, she said, "I woke up a few minutes later surrounded by a pack of 10 gray wolves. The leader of the pack snuggled up to my back, and the others laid down, forming a living, breathing blanket around my trembling body. Isn't that amazing?" You would expect they would want to eat the pregnant woman. Rather, what they did was comfort her. The Minnesotan was surprised by what she witnessed, but her instincts told her not to be scared, and that she was in good hands, or claws. About 30 minutes after she woke up, Mary went into labor. And would you believe who were her wet nurses? She said, "I went into strong labor later and delivered my baby boy. The wolves were my wet nurses. They all knew what to do, where to stay to ensure that I and my baby didn't feel too cold. The wolves were my midwives, as they all kept circling and watching me like a hawk. I could tell that they had no intention of harming me and my child. I was treated like a member of the pack. They clipped my umbilical cord with their teeth, licked my baby clean, and one of them nudged my baby towards me with its snout so I could nurse him." The new mother was stunned by the pack's hospitality. A group of animals were her very own guardian angels. While all this was happening, her husband and a couple of friends had started searching for her. He knew that his wife should have arrived a long time ago. He took a gun with him because he knew there were dangerous animals in the area, and he feared that the worst might have happened. Mary's husband and his friends spent some time searching for her until they found her car and then followed her footprints. They saw the pack of wolves, and they were worried that the worst fear had been confirmed. They shot into the air 3 times to disperse the wolves, and they were all gobsmacked when they saw Mary and the newborn child were safe and unharmed. They didn't have time to ask questions. Instead, they wrapped her in a blanket and took them to the truck. Mary states that she believes that God sent the wolves to help her. Otherwise, she and her baby might not have survived. She considers them as her family and hopes to see them again. I glanced out the back window as we sped away. The pack was standing in the snow, watching until we were out of sight. "I'll take my boy back to see the animals who saved their life," she said. Who would have thought wolves were capable of such kindness? Do you have any similar stories of animals performing heroic deeds? Share with me in the comments. See you next time.